Welcome to the Six Pennies podcast. This is Jonathan Mock, and I got my friends here, Timmy and Albie, on the line. So we got all six pennies here. It's kind of becoming a rare occasion. But guys, this is officially our 15th episode. Can you guys believe it?
15. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking at the calendar now. It's like mid-February. We've got 15 lined up already for out published, actually. So it's our 15th episode, and for those of you who follow us on Facebook already at Six Pennies Podcast, you guys probably have seen that we're at 100 likes. So we're giving a quick prize giveaway. So if you go to that our Facebook page and comment on there, any type of future podcast topic that you might be interested in, you'll be automatically entered to win our prize. And on that note, since this is our 15th episode and since we have a bunch of suggestions out here, today we're going to introduce a new segment to you guys. We're calling it our Pocket Change segment. So this is where we've kind of reached into our pockets, reached between couch cushions, and we found a bunch of pocket change, found a lot of your questions and comments, mostly from the Facebook page, some in real life or some online. However we might have gotten it, we've collected them together, and we're going to just go through them together here with you guys. So our first question comes from our friend Jason Wang, loyal fan of the podcast, and he asks, what is the most important sense? So I'll give a caveat. I think it's really hard or impossible for any of us to say anything other than the sense of sight for the most important one. But I want you guys to kind of look through them. So there's a sense of sight, sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of smell, and sense of taste. So can you guys go ahead and rank them for me?
For me, number two. So after sight, I think sight's pretty obvious is number one. For me, number two, and it's because I remember reading somewhere this sense triggers like the most vivid memories from your past. It brings you back to the time, like the time this happened, and that sense is the sense of smell. So whatever you like smelling, that's definitely something I would never give up, is my sense of smell.
Interesting. What about you, Timmy? What's your number two?
My number two is going to be hearing, just because I think that's such a big part of, I don't know, like I don't want to have to learn sign language, and it just makes life a lot easier to be able to hear things, right? And then you get to enjoy music, you get to understand what people are saying, watch TV. Like, that's got to be number two for me.
What about taste? I'm surprised taste isn't high up there for you guys, or at least number two. I feel like, you eat, 3 to however many times a day, and to not be able to fully enjoy that experience, I feel like it's taking away a big part of your life.
Yeah, I thought about taste too, but I think I read somewhere, I don't know, I just read random things, but I remember reading that taste, your sense of taste becomes basically obsolete when you don't have your sense of smell, because the smell triggers all these different, synapses in your brain to really like help you remember what it's supposed to taste like, what you're supposed to be thinking and feeling, and so that's why for me smell was greater than taste. But I would say taste would be a close number three.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, smelling is completely linked to taste. Like, you can't really taste if you don't smell well. So, Albert, I think you're right by picking smell before taste. But I don't really understand touch, because how would you be able to taste if you couldn't touch?
So when I went through the list, after we threw out sight because it's number one, the first thing I thought about was same thing as you, was hearing, a sense of hearing, especially around music and stuff. But then the thing that really got me was all the famous musicians and just like composers from back then. I think it was like Bach, right? He couldn't hear, or was that Beethoven? I think it was Beethoven who lost his sense of hearing, but he was able to feel and sense the vibrations on the floor, and that's how that's how he created music, and that's how he composed his like greatest renditions of things. And so, even without the sense of hearing, this guy was still able to make music. So that's why, for me, hearing was lower.
So you're saying that you think you could be like Beethoven? I don't think everybody can do that.
Well,
I think it's like he was amazing, and that's why he could do it. I don't think we could.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that is crazy. I'm learning, like, this is stuff I didn't expect to learn all this stuff from this podcast today. Stuff
Also, I
about
think
Beethoven.
it was Mozart actually, but
Was it
is it
Mozart?
Beethoven?
I don't know. Someone need to fact check that.
It's Beethoven. My mom would be so mad at me right now. Just to be like, for sure.
Yeah, so
Okay, so we
Beethoven.
learned that Beethoven.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so remember that scene in Ratatouille where the bad guy or whatever, the old cook who got fired or sent off, he comes back and sneaks back into the restaurant, but the food critic like tastes the ratatouille and gets transported back. So you guys are saying that it wasn't really his taste, it was the smell of it that transported him all the way back to that childhood experience?
No, I think they're combined. Like I think your taste is enhanced by the smell. So you need to have some sort of smell in order to taste fully. Like when you're sick and you can't like breathe as well, your nose isn't working as well. You often can't like taste your food as much either, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think the one thing about taste for me is that you lose your taste buds as you grow older. They start like dying on your tongue, and that's why like old people eat all sorts of gross stuff.
Okay, interesting. I did not expect. We'll have to fact check that at some point. All that stuff, but I didn't expect to hear all the education from that first question.
I say let's move on to the next subject because once you said Ratatouille, I just thought about Omer Sheik.
Okay, so our second question in this pocket change segment comes from Derek Lamb, and he asks, "What are your best / worst gym exercises?" So I know you, especially Timmy. I feel like you've keep texting us back and forth saying that you're always at the gym. It sounds like. So, do you have something for this?
So this is two separate things, right? Your best and your worst. It's not your best / worst.
Yeah, whatever it might be.
Okay.
Your favorite, your least favorite.
Okay. First of all, I am not always at the gym at all. I think you guys texted me maybe once or twice when I happen to be there. It's a very rare occasion for me. I actually have no best because I dislike going to the gym. So I don't think there's one that I can choose as my favorite. But I know my least favorite from doing CrossFit for a little bit. The hardest thing, the most annoying thing we did was wall balls. Have you guys done those?
What is that? Can you describe it?
So you're holding like a large medicine ball, typically about 20 pounds, standing about an arm's length away from the wall. You squat down while holding it at your chest high. And then
it's like wall sits, yeah.
You bounce straight up and you throw the ball in the air about 15 feet up. And then you catch it and it goes straight back down in the squat. And you do this over and over again. And it's like, it's okay maybe a few times, but when you have to do it like 20 times, 40 times, 100 times, it's insanely terrible.
What happens when you don't have the hand-eye coordination to catch the medicine ball?
It's pretty easy because it's a large cushiony ball. So it's like you can drop even if you drop it on the floor. It's the act of like squatting and then lifting it, pushing it in the air, the weight of it coming down on you over and over again. That's why I stopped doing CrossFit.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
Albert, what about you?
For me, so the way I read this question was favorite and least favorite. So my least favorite would be anything back related. So anything that requires you to pull up things or anything like that, I just hate doing. But on the flip side, I know when I work out with my friends, they hate anything that is ab related or planks and stuff like that. So my favorite actually are like planks and side planks and one finger planks, and I just love doing planks.
One finger?
Yeah.
How does that? What? How do you do one finger? One finger on each hand, or?
How's your finger that strong?
It's like you get in push-up position, and instead of doing the whole palm, you're doing like either two fingers.
You sound like Mr. Incredible right now. That's what I don't know
what you're talking about. I don't know that's possible.
But yeah, you're holding that position. You're focused on your fingers, but really you're trying to keep your abs tight. Hence the planks.
Hey, Albie, do you dislike all back, like lower back as well, or only the real pulling stuff like pull-ups?
The pulling stuff, like when you
So
have
the
to,
lats.
yeah, like when you lay on your stomach and you pull things up. I hate that. I can't do any of that stuff.
Okay,
How
well, for
many?
me, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, how many pull-ups do you think you could do right now, Albie?
I'd say less than 10.
It's tough.
Yeah, so
What
that
about you?
goes into mine. Pull-ups is actually my favorite.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Jeez.
basically because
Show off.
well, you can do it. You can do it anywhere. Like you don't need even gym access. So a lot of times, so I have a newborn kid. Well, he's not that newborn. He's like 7 months now, and those times when he's sleeping like he is right now, if I want, I can't just run out to the gym and leave him here on his own. So I just put up the pull-up bar and do a little gym workout right there. So that's one of my favorites, and along with that, I like a lot of the kind of body weight stuff anyway, stuff that doesn't require weight. So pull-ups and dips. Worst. So I know the answer that Derek is kind of looking for, kind of insider info. For the longest time, he's been trying to get me to do squats, and he's a big proponent of this. It's tough. Like I don't know if I just don't trust my knee fully yet. I mean, I had a major injury maybe like a couple years ago. Nothing got torn, but dislocated my kneecap. So getting back into squats now for the first time in like a decade has been really tough. But
Whoa.
that is one of my New Year's resolutions now.
How often do you squat?
Right now it's only once a week. I'm trying to get it up more, but it's one of those things like. I get really sore after I do squats now. And I mean, I'm embarrassed to say, I tell them this all the time, but I still bench more than I squat, which should never happen. But yeah. So yeah, that's that question.
But that's because you bench like 300 pounds.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I'm one of those, I don't bench every time I go, but it's at least every other time. So
you're all about. So every other time you're doing the arms, right? Doing your biceps. You're one of
no,
those guys.
I don't do arms anymore. But bench, yeah, it's every other day is chest day every time I go. So
terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I'm all about the legs now too. I don't do it a lot, but I try to like work them in at least some way. Almost every day I'm there. Just
every day?
It's like not every day. Almost every day I go to the gym. So that's like twice, 2 or 3 times a week maybe. But it's just because I'm scared of getting old and like, you fall, you can't get up, or like it's hard to. You watch like old people trying to sit down and stand up. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's definitely me right now. Third question.
Before you go to number 3, so I read like Hugh Jackman's workout for Wolverine, and it's basically like 90% squats. It's crazy. Even like he says the motion of squatting, whether it's like holding weights or whatever, it actually in and of itself works out your upper body too. So maybe he's onto something because that guy's jacked.
It's really good for your core too.
Yeah, I'm definitely a believer in squats. I can tell the difference. Even now, I mean, we're only 2 months in the new year, but after doing squats once a week for the past 8-9 weeks, like I can tell the difference. It's just it's not fun to me. So I'm trying. I need to change that ratio though. I know I do. So our third pocket change question comes from Troy Wong, and he asks, which of these carries the biggest bragging rights? Is it A, winning your fantasy league, B, winning your office pool, or C, any friend-to-friend side bets you might have? Albert, let's start with you.
Yeah, so for me, it's very dependent on like who these competitions are with. Winning fantasy league or office pool or whatnot, one thing it has to have is it has to be among like really close friends or family or something like that. And so I would have to say either friend-to-friend side bet or winning your fantasy league that is, with all your friends.
All right, Timmy, what about you?
Yeah, I have to cut out the friend-to-friend side bets because I remember I did that with Albert a few times and lost like 6 or 7 meals in a row. So I don't do those things anymore.
I actually remember that. Do you still owe him any?
No, I don't owe him any.
Are you sure?
He came. He came up to LA for like a week to hang out after that, just so he could cash in. I just like bought all his meals and like
free trip.
It was terrible. And then I would also go with the fantasy league, especially with like friends. I'm in one that I've been in for like 12 years, so that would have to have the biggest bragging rights.
Yeah, for me, it's the same thing. It has to be fantasy league, assuming that it's one with your friends and not just a random one you join, like a public one on ESPN or Yahoo. But I will say that winning your office pool, even though there's not much, I mean, it's normally for something like, Super Bowl squares or March Madness, so there's not that much like actual skill involved, but it normally does have the biggest payout, right? So that's always pretty nice. And even though that it's a lot of luck and a lot of, just kind of picking and choosing, I feel like everyone else in the office respects you a little bit more, or sees you as like this kind of sports guru.
That's true.
So the fourth and final question we're going to go through today on this newly founded Pocket Change segment comes from Daniel Wang, and he asks, which famous celebrities we've met or seen in real life? Timmy, I'm going to start with you. I'm expecting a certain story that I've heard multiple times from you. Not complaining, because it does get better every time you tell it.
So many times.
We'll see if it's the same one or if you bring a new one to the mix. So, Timmy, what you got?
Well, first, shout out to Daniel. He's actually in that fantasy league I talked about. I've been in for 12 years, so thanks for asking the question and listening. I'm sure you guys are thinking of my encounter with Kate Beckinsale. And it was pretty amazing. It was at the Santa Monica Promenade, like the first year I moved out to LA. The sun was shining. She looked really radiant that day, and I don't know. It was a great experience. I didn't say hi to her or anything though, because she was with her family. That's not what I planned on telling you guys.
Okay.
The most famous person I met is probably Kobe Bryant. We had like a meet and greet thing with coworkers for a work event once, so got to meet him, take some pictures, and then there's a Q&A section where I asked him a question, and I asked who was the best player he'd ever played with. I was trying to bait him and see if he would say somebody other than Shaq, but he's like, oh, no question, it's Shaq. So not that interesting, but it was fun.
Was he what you expected in real life?
Yeah, he's really cool. Like when he walked into the room, it was one of those things where it's like, whoa, this guy is here. He was really cool.
True. All right, Albert, what about you?
Okay, so I have two stories. They're both basketball related, and they both happened to me while I lived in Southern California. The first one was when Timmy and we actually went to UCLA one summer, and we, watched a bunch of NBA players practice or work out and stuff. They would play pickup games at the UCLA gym. And then what's cool is some of them would stick around after they were done, and they would watch us play pickup games. So like me and Timmy would play, random people. And there was a game where I hit like, I don't know, 3 or 4 shots in a row. And then Danny Granger, who was a Indiana Pacer at the time, he shouted me out. He was like, nice shot, man. I was like, whoa. And the NBA player gave me props. So that was cool.
I don't remember that at all.
Maybe you weren't there.
Fact checking.
I don't remember that. Well, I remember watching him play. I don't remember him saying good shot, but
yeah,
right.
Yeah. And then the second story was so I went to UC Irvine for my undergrad, and Kobe Bryant actually lived just around the corner from our campus, and so he would use our gym to work out in the mornings, and he's notorious to waking up at like 5 or 6 in the morning and doing like a full workout. And he would be using our gym doing that. And one morning, me and a couple friends would like get together and work out. I think like 2 or 3 times a week. And it was one morning when we were kind of late to our class, and it was Kobe Bryant who was holding the door to the gym for us. And it was crazy for me because this was like 2007, so Kobe Bryant prime was holding the door for me as we were trying to get into the gym.
It's funny. I didn't know that you would have a Kobe story, but it reminds me of something that happened to me at UT. It was like my freshman year, right after the NCAA tournament, and we had just lost, and TJ Ford was our best player, and I was going back to Jester East and was walking in, and he like opened the door for me too, and I was in the elevator with them, and I remember I was like, oh yeah, good game. We'll get him next year. And he's like, yeah, we'll get him. And then he left for the draft like immediately afterwards.
We'll get him next year.
Yeah.
So you guys have a Kobe connection. I like that. I have a TJ Ford connection with Timmy, it sounds like. So back at UT, I'm a year younger than Timmy. So one of my first memories at UT was my friend Simon. He lived on the same floor as all the athletes our freshman year, just the east third floor back in the day. And he was actually found himself in the elevator with TJ. This is in the summer right before school began, and TJ obviously had decided to leave for the NBA already, but he needed someone to swipe him in. So Simon swiped him in and kind of stealthily, creepily followed him or looked down the hall to see which door he went into, and then immediately ran up or took the elevator, got back in the elevator, went up to my room on the 8th floor, told me about it, and we found these, I guess, UT wristbands we had lying around for some reason. And we went right back down to that door like 5 minutes later, knocked on it, not knowing what to expect. His friend, it wasn't TJ, but his friend answered the door, and he was just like, yeah. And I still don't really know what happened after that. Like, I don't remember what we said. I think we tried to explain ourselves for a second. But then we eventually just like kind of asked sheepishly, like, is TJ in there? And then he's like, yeah. And then TJ, I see him poke his head out from the corner. He's like, who's that? And then I don't remember if he invited us in or what, but we kind of just walked past his friend and went right into his dorm room and introduced ourselves. TJ was a really nice guy. He signed our stuff. He didn't really ask how we got there. He probably recognized Simon from the elevator and was like, all right, this guy. So yeah, that's my TJ story. But another story that I want to share real quick, especially since I think all of us in here are really big Shane Battier fans. And I know...
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
He's a friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, yeah. Me and Albert especially, I think we have called Timmy Shane on occasion, dozens of times, just because Shane Battier is pretty much Timmy's like NBA counterpart.
Yeah,
so,
for those who don't know, Timmy is like the most fundamentally sound basketball player who can finish with both hands, has a left-handed hook shot, right-handed hook shot, and he loves bounce passes.
Just like Shane.
It's just like Shane Battier.
I don't love that.
But yeah, we'll definitely have a pickup basketball pod coming up sometime in the near future. But you guys were actually both with me for this memory. I think we were all in Houston at Toyota Center for this player meet and greet. And I don't remember how we got tickets through a friend or something. But
Kohler, maybe?
Yeah, so I think it was our friend Kohler. But somehow or other, I ended up getting like a raffle ticket or some sort of ticket for a meet and greet with Shane Battier. And it ended up being like in a photo booth. And I remember I was really excited. Like I treated it like a normal photo booth. Like they had like silly like hats and accessories and stuff. So I brought in like hats and different stuff like that. Gave it to him. He was a really nice guy. Most people when they saw the pictures, like they didn't believe me. They thought I had photoshopped it, which I was actually. I mean, I didn't want to negate that because that's a pretty good Photoshop job if it was. But yeah, Shane Battier. Do you guys remember that?
I can't believe you didn't like let me go in your place or something. I took a picture with Brian Cook. Brian Cook.
You still counts, man.
The only thing I remember from that event was wagging my finger in front of Dikembe Mutombo like 10 times.
Yeah. From like 30 feet away though, right? He wasn't near us.
No,
there was in elbow range.
There was definitely a few times where he was right next to me.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Nice. Amazing.
But yeah, that kind of wraps up our pocket change segment. Thanks you guys for tuning in, and again, we always appreciate your input and suggestions and support. Please, if you haven't already, please follow us on Twitter at 6 Pennies Pod and like us on Facebook at 6 Pennies Podcast. Thanks, guys.